killing brush. I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
God!
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
I'm Chuck.
And this week, we don't have a guest. We decided we had some listener questions we wanted to answer and some email, or I guess emails we wanted to read and talk about. Two that have been kind of sitting there waiting. And then we had some stuff that Chuck and I were talking about that we thought would be an interesting conversation in light of, just things that we've been talking about. And I recently had somebody comment to me about my law enforcement background and, was talking to them because they had tried to get into law enforcement and they'd said, they found the testing process difficult. And I had said that I didn't find it that difficult. I mean, it sucks. It's like, a slog, but, he goes, well, that's because your dad was in law enforcement. So it was probably, easier for you. And I thought about that, and Chuck and I wanted to talk about because we're both children of people in law enforcement. And whether you go into law enforcement or not, being a kid of a cop it's almost like being a pastor's kid. There's a very specific club of, oh, your dad was a cop, mine too. Or your mom was a cop, mine too. And then you have mutual experiences you can discuss. Am I right?
Yeah, and those are the two wildest fucking people to party with because they have something to prove or disprove. So they go a little bit extra.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to get into some of that today. But in the meantime, I thought we would get into at least one email that has been kind of waiting for us to read it. So the first email we have today that I wanted to read, Chuck, and I wanted to get, this was one sent to me, so I don't think you've seen this one. So this will be fun that you get to hear it cold. But this listener, and it requested anonymity. God, I can't speak today.
Anonymity.
It says, thoughts an issue going on up north and wanted to see what you thought of it as a potential topic. Eddie Gallagher, and y'all, if you don't know who Eddie Gallagher is, he was the Navy SEAL that was brought up on charges for a mercy killing. If you subscribe to it the way I do.
He pissed off his teammates, I think, is what happened.
I think so too.
And they said some shit.
They motherfuckers.
They got pardoned. He got pardoned though.
So he posted on Instagram, and there was a video made by an account. I think the account, if I read this right, is called Angry Cops. Made an emotional video about it, but he says a Canadian veteran reached out to the Veteran Affairs of Canada. I guess that's their version of the VA. And he was seeking help for his PTSD and traumatic brain injury sustained while serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. The Canadian VA personnel on the phone with him encouraged him to go the route of medically assisted suicide, or as the government funded media in Canada put it, medical assistance in dying. Yeah.
So
let me
pump the brakes for okay.
Yeah. When the veteran told the VAC personnel he didn't want to take that route, the VAC personnel told him he had already assisted one vet to end it. But don't worry, we got his children counseling after the fact. And the media in Canada did not disclose that this individual had encouraged another member of the veterans community to follow that option. The last reports heard were that the Veteran Affairs of Canada personnel who suggested this is still manning the phones, though the Canadian government has promised that there will be an investigation. I'm disgusted by my country's treatment of vets under this current administration. I have multiple friends serving in the Canadian Armed Forces, including my best friend. I was medically DQ'd in 2018, so I don't get the honor. But that being said, as a civilian, how can I help my friends? I know I don't have the experiences, so is it even my place to help? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I've sent a link to the local news websites about the article. Um, yeah, that one upset me.
So I don't know if you've been following it, but I've been doing nothing but watching the fucking news, and it's kind of like horrible. Turning Point USA put something out about Canada, and there was a Canadian up there, and she's, I guess, a Republican and a more conservative Canadian, and she was talking about how Canada last year enacted a assisted suicide thing where you could go and get assisted suicide or help committing suicide. And the year that she was talking about, they had already assisted 10,000 people in dying. And she's like, this is a sinister thing that the Canadian government has put forth. Right. Well, it's not even a dark secret. It's out there, kind of like their free healthcare. They're like, oh, free healthcare for everyone, free death for everyone. And she's like, she was like putting some hypotheses together where it's like, this is pretty dark because if they really want to fucking silence you, they just say, oh, well, he killed himself, assisted suicide, and he just got murdered. So, or she got murdered. It's a way to silence people if, like how the secret police were silencing Jews or whatever, just killing them. And this is kind of somewhat reminiscent of that. And from what I was gathering when she was saying it, but Canada has put forth this new initiative of assisted suicide, and they're killing people left and right. They're Hillary Clinton the fuck out of them. They're getting Clintoned up there big time with this assisted suicide. And that's bullshit where someone's hurting. They call a veterans helpline and they're like, hey man, I'm struggling. They're like, hey, why don't you just kill yourself? Go fuck yourself. Why don't you just kill yourself? That's fucking horrible. Shame on you, Canada. And yes, dude, you are a civilian, but it doesn't matter. Those are your buddies. It doesn't matter what they're going through. They're your fucking buddies, and you should be talking to them, and you should be trying to get them help, or helping them, or just talking to them. Yeah, you may not be able to empathize. You'll be able to empathize, but not. You won't be able to basically say, "Oh, I know what you're going through." But anytime someone's struggling, you still don't know what they're going through because you're not going through exactly what they're going through, and everyone else is different. So it doesn't matter if you went to war. It doesn't matter if you haven't been in a shootout. You can still help someone struggling because they're your friends and you know them the best. So yeah, absolutely, it's your place. If you want to help them, help them. I mean, and I think it would only do good. It's not going to do harm. And if they're like, hey man, I thank you for the help, but I think I really need to talk to someone who's been through what I've gone through, then help them find that person. Because I can tell you, when you are struggling with shit like that, it's kind of hard to function. So just by giving them the help that they need, and maybe helping them facilitate someone to talk to that's been through that stuff, or finding them a help group or support group online, would be so helpful. I mean, and they would thank you in the long run. So yeah, absolutely, it's your place.
I would agree with everything that Chuck just said. And I would add that if they're your friends, it's your duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
You may be able to just simply say, hey, I wasn't there, but I'm here to listen. Or maybe I can help you find somebody that you're more comfortable talking to, or I can just sit with you and be with you and, make sure you're not alone, or whatever. Right. So I looked at, because I was pretty upset by this, to say the least. And I didn't.
Oh, it's fucking horrible.
Like, this email came in and I've been sitting on it because we've had guests scheduled and I really wanted to talk about it. I looked it up. Okay. And this is from August of this year. And it's an article entitled "Canadian Soldiers Suffering with PTSD Offered Euthanasia by Veteran Affairs."
Jesus Christ.
And this is not from this is, I looked it up. There's articles on the New York Post, Fox News, it's all over. It's not like Turning Point, only, or
right. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So just before you be like, oh, where are you getting that news from? I'm telling you right now, it's everywhere. You can, you type in Canadian veteran, and then the first suggestion that comes up says offered euthanasia. Okay. Yeah. So it's out there. But the
Canadian assisted suicides.
Right. So it says a Canadian armed veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and a traumatic brain injury was offered medical assistance in dying by an employee of Veteran Affairs Canada. The VAC released a statement last week admitting to an incident where, quote, medical assistance in dying was discussed inappropriately with the veteran, unquote. The department pledged that, quote, appropriate administrative action will be taken, unquote, after the veteran expressed outrage at the suggestion, according to the report in Global News.
Wow.
The report also said the veteran called the VAC seeking support for his PTSD when an employee brought up medical assistance in dying, or MAID, which is euthanasia. For those of you who don't know what medical assistance in dying, they call it MAID. Oh, made him die.
That's because they dehumanize it.
Mm-hmm. And so he felt he was being betrayed by the VA when they offered it to him. And then it goes on to talk about how this ordeal raised fears that the exchange may not have been an isolated incident, leading to questions about how often the agency has offered or discussed MAID with veterans suffering from PTSD. The agency has apologized to the veteran. Oh, that was nice. He apologized. And a follow-up call after the incident resulted in several complaints and the VAC said, we deeply regret what transpired.
No, you don't.
So first of all, discussing assisted suicide with a veteran is apparently not within the scope of what the VAC can do. And
that's some fucking crazy shit. They're just, that shit's popping off down there.
So I looked up the law because the law changed. It says in this article when the law changed, I think it was like 2017 when
they've been
new laws went into effect. Wow. And I looked, it says, so here's what. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
On March 17th, 2021, the government of Canada announced that this is off of Canada.ca's website. So I'm not like, okay.
No, yeah.
March 17th, 2021, the government of Canada announced that changes to Canada's medical assistance in dying law are officially in force. The new law includes changes to eligibility, procedural safeguards, and the framework for the federal government's data collection and reporting regime. So they're collecting data on this. So if you don't think they know like who's being offered this, like they fucking know. They're collecting data. And
we'll just go kill them later.
We can read reports about medically, MAID in in Canada. So it says they have an about section, right? And then they have the who can provide medical assistance in dying, right? Which is physicians and nurse practitioners, right? So doctors who took, I would think, the Hippocratic Oath to first do no harm, right?
Fuck it, dude.
Yeah. And then pharmacists and pharmacy techs.
What?
They can provide
vaccine.
They can provide help. They can't actually do the thing, but they can provide help. Family members, healthcare providers who help physicians. It's kind of crazy. Like basically it's saying, you can allow it. It's not, you won't go to prison for it. And it does say not all healthcare providers are comfortable with medical assistance in dying. Participating in medical assistance in dying may not be consistent with the provider's beliefs and values. This federal legislation does not force any person to provide help or to provide medical assistance in dying. Well, fucking gee whiz. Thanks for being so sweet and not mandating that doctors kill their patients. That was really nice of you. And then I looked up two types of medical assistance in dying for Canadians. A physician or nurse practitioner can directly administer a substance that causes death, such as an injection of a drug. Which is crazy to me that we're like doctors can do this, but we can't. But we have fucking people on death row suing about lethal injection. Like, hey, we know you served in the military, and we're gonna assist you in dying by giving you a hot shot of something.
But and then, yes, you do.
Yeah, right.
It's going to turn into just murdering people.
You can provide a prescription drug that the eligible person Eligible person, by the way. That's how they describe the suicidal subject.
Completely
Eligible person.
Dehumanizing it.
Takes themselves in order to bring about their own death. This is becoming known as self-administered medical assistance in dying. There's a fucking word for self-administered medical assistance in dying. It's called suicide.
Mm-hmm.
There's the taking of
That's
one's own life.
Too dark.
And like directly, like available MAID options, 2 types of medical assistance. Physician directly administers the injection of the drug. That's called homicide. Right? There's homicide or suicide. Those are your 2 options. And hey, I get that this dude's giving consent or this gal's giving consent, but you know how many times I pointed my gun at a suspect who's like, come on, just fucking kill me.
Right.
I should be legally allowed to shoot him.
we could have been
he
like,
can give me consent to search his car.
Do you know
then,
how many?
Mm-hmm.
How many? Like, if we could go, I don't have enough fingers or toes.
So I don't know if I've ever mentioned this because it's not really a big story. So I remember one time we went to and talk about like what you say, you know, use of force being your words, you know, and verbal judo and things you could say. So this was one incident where we went to a house, me and my sergeant, we get there. It's like 11:30 at night. Neighbors are calling about a disturbance. This motherfucker's out in the front yard, drunk as shit with a baseball bat, swinging for the fences. And we're not going anywhere near to the baseball bat. We're not getting our heads smashed in. We're going to make him drop the bat and then we'll go and talk to him. So he's like, put down the fucking bat. And he's like, fuck you guys. Right. So he's got a deadly weapon and he's within running distance of smashing our brains in. We drew our guns and we told him, put the bat down, both for our safety and for the safety of the other people in the front yard that he had been causing a problem with.
Right.
And I had my front sight picture. I had my sergeant next to me. I had, you know, I was ready to go. I was high index, but I was ready to go. And I said, put the fucking bat down now. And he says, fuck you, pigs. Come on, just fucking kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what made me think of this, but I leaned over to my sergeant and I said, hey, Sarge, is that consent? And
just consented to death. Shut up, dude.
And the guy with the bat goes, and his eyes get real big and he drops the bat. Because I think at that moment, his drunk ass was like, wait, did I just consent to letting them kill me? And can they actually do it because I told them to?
Right.
And he didn't know.
He's like, oh no, I'm good. I'm just fucking around. I'm just fucking around. I'm good. Like it's happened so many times that I cannot even keep track, but I know I don't have enough fingers or toes on my body, which is about 18. So
yeah, your kill count would be up there.
Just kidding, guys. It's 20. I have all my fingers and toes. I'm not a weirdo. But yeah, no, I would be up there because there's so many people that are just off their rocker having a bad day and saying that, hey, just fucking kill me. And so if physicians are able to do that, why not cops? Why don't we just like fucking anyone who says, hey, I want to die, shouldn't matter the means or
roadside execution with watch commander approval.
Hey, he said he wanted to. Okay. This is so sinister, and obviously I don't condone
right. We're not seriously talking about
a fucking joke.
Yeah.
But what's happening is not a joke, and what's going on over in Canada is very sinister. It's very scary, and if you think that shit's not going to come to the U.S., it's already here.
Yeah. Well, so in order to be eligible, because I wanted to find this out. Oh, you got to be eligible.
Was it like 16?
Well, so here you go.
15.
So in order to be eligible for medical assistance in dying, you must meet all the following criteria. You must be eligible for health services funded by the federal government or a province or territory or during the applicable minimum period of residence or waiting period for eligibility. Generally, visitors to Canada are not eligible for medical assistance in dying. I can only assume this is in there because there are people here that are like, I need to commit assisted suicide, so I'm going to go to Canada and see a Canadian doctor and get them to do it. Right. So, okay. I guess kind of they're like, look, we think it's the right thing to do to help people kill themselves, but we don't want Americans coming here to do it.
Right. But all they have to do is go to like Seattle or or whatever, Portland. I think
Oh,
it's one of
God,
those
right.
two places where you can do it, and it's assisted by a medical professional, but you have to be a resident
Yeah.
there. You got to have
Yeah.
a doctor there, and then
Yeah, I don't know what the criteria are there. You must be at least 18 years old and mentally competent. This means being capable of making healthcare decisions for yourself. Okay, mentally competent. So when you're struggling with something that is a mental illness or is a mental condition or is like, we're not talking about like, you know, somebody who is like Metallica's one, lost their arms and their legs and their nose and their ears and their eyes, and they're just sitting there on the bed, tapping their head with the Morse code saying, kill me, please. That's not what we're talking about, right? That guy, we're talking about like somebody who walks in and says, hey, I'm depressed. I think I want to kill myself. Can you help me? And you go, yeah, we can help you kill yourself. No, that's not what I meant. Like, so there's that. They have to be mentally competent, which again begs the question: are veterans who are actively thinking suicidal thoughts about self-harm, are they mentally competent to say that that's what they want to do? Are you freaking kidding me? We actually have to have that discussion. Like,
yeah,
it shouldn't like the you would think it's always erring on the side of no, we should help people live. Um,
right,
Here's the one that kills me. You have to have a quote grievous and irremediable medical condition and make a voluntary request for medical assistance in dying that is not the result of outside pressure or influence. Well, if somebody on the fucking mental helpline is
it's offering
suggesting it,
it.
is doesn't that by definition mean that it's outside influence? It may not be pressure, but it's definitely influence. Telling somebody that they
Right.
should consider this is influencing their the second you bring it up, you're influencing their decision.
Yeah, 100%. That's fucking wild, dude. They don't give a fuck. It's shame on you, Canada, and shame on you, Trudeau. You fucking dope. Like, dude, that is so fucked up. And I know not all Canadians are like this, and obviously, because we have one asking for help. But fuck, dude, that's so sad. Like, shame on the Canadian government for allowing this shit to happen, and for putting that forward. And I know there's some really good Canadians up in the government over there, but they're getting shut down left and right by Trudeau. I mean, just look what happened with the whole truckers and stuff like that,
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff, where he was arresting people for carrying fucking gas cans. Like, the dude is a fucking nut, and he is the epitome of fucking racism and asshole. I mean, just look at his blackface when it came out, and everyone else is getting reamed, but oh no, he's a straight a hardcore liberal. It's okay that he did that. So the consensus I'm getting is that it's okay if you're a hardcore lib. It's okay. You can be racist. We'll forgive you because you're a lib, because you're voting for
right,
us.
right.
And this is just fucking sinister, dude. This is so bad. You should be helping those that make it possible to live your life, not fucking offering to kill them.
Yeah. So this is disgusting to me, and it
Yeah,
should be disgusting
absolutely.
to every one of you. And I don't give two shits about the Canadian government's apology or the Veteran Affairs of Canada apologizing.
No.
I hope the veteran that they apologize to accepts their apology for his own peace or her own peace. I don't remember if it was a guy or a girl, but um
Mm.
I, how are we even having this conversation? How the fuck are we even having this? It says, here you
Mhm.
go. Here you go. Check this out. Check this out. You're going to love this, Chuck. So, grievous or irremediable medical condition, right? I'm going to read you the criteria and you tell me like if PTSD, right? And I get it. They're saying, well, he suffered a traumatic brain injury as well. Yeah, but traumatic brain injuries alter how your brain thinks, and that
Right.
could mean you're not competent.
Competent.
Right? So it says must meet in bold letters all of the following criteria: have a serious illness, disease, or disability, excluding a mental illness until March 17th of 2023. So for right now, mental illness doesn't qualify, but fucking March 17th of 2023, you're good to go.
Well, they're going to kill all those fucking people off. They're going to be like, oh, they wanted it. They wanted it. We need to make room. They wanted it. They wanted it. Like, get
It must
ready.
be in an advanced state of decline that cannot be reversed. And
It's
then you must
crazy.
experience unbearable physical or mental suffering from your illness, disease, disability, or state of decline that cannot be relieved under conditions that you consider acceptable.
So when the Germans fucking rounded up all the Jews and started throwing them in concentration camps, and people nowadays, there's some people who are denying it ever happened. However, some people are like, well, how'd that ever happen? Like, how did it get to that point? This is how it got to that point right here. This right here is how it got to that point. And you get one crazy fucking nut in there, and he starts making these small little changes. It's like, how did Venezuela get into communism? How did Cuba get into communism? Well, it's the same
One step
analogy
at
on
a
how you,
time.
right, and how you catch a wild pig. You put food down, the food
Right.
pig comes and eat. You put one side of the fence up, keep the food there. The pig will still come and eat, gets used to that fence. Well, once it's used to that side of the fence, you put another side up, so on and so forth until that pig comes in and there's 3 walls up. The food's in this area. He's like, yeah, fuck it. Doesn't look much different. Goes in there and keeps eating, keeps eating, keeps eating. Bam. Fourth wall comes up. Now you're fucking stuck. Now I got you. Now I can do whatever I want to you. That's how this happens. Wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's how do you boil a frog?
You put it in cold water and slowly turn up the temperature.
Mm-hmm. It's insidious, and the people of Germany were all forced to visit their local concentration camps, and Dwight Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander at the time, said, hey, I want video and film, or not video, I want film and photographs of all of this shit, because somebody somewhere someday is going to say that this never happened, and we need to be able to tell them, fuck you, yes it did. Well, I honestly, there are some issues going on in our society today, and I'm sure those of you who listen to both Locker Room and War Stories official podcasts know what my feelings on some of those social issues are, but this is one of them. I am not against, in theory, euthanasia. In my very libertarian kind of way of thinking, it's like, dude, if if your body is thrashed, like I had a thing that I had signed on my on file at my department. I don't want to be kept alive by artificial means. Like if I'm a fucking vegetable, like if you could save me with some blood and a CPR, and all that, okay, cool. Like I didn't have a DNR or anything,
Right.
but I did not want to be kept alive by artificial means. It's not, if they're saying, okay, we have him on a ventilator, he's going to recover, blah 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 blah. That's fine. But my wife knew, like, if the doctor's like, yeah, we don't, this is how he's going to be, then no, right? Pull the plug. Like, my biggest fear is that my faith in my religion is correct, and yet I get trapped in my body and don't get to like leave. And I'm like
Right.
stuck here, you know.
That'd
Um,
be horrible.
so this is one of those social issues that I think that in the fullness of time, when we look back on how we handled the issue of euthanasia and helping people end their own lives, I think we will be on the wrong side of history on this one. A big portion of society, when it comes to like offering veterans, or that fucking girl who talked her boyfriend into killing himself via text message in the car, and like all these terrible, terrible things that we just as a society are, oh yeah, whatever. Like, it's one thing for somebody to make that decision for themselves, and then to go to it's a personal thing. I get it. And it's sad and it's tragic. And I'm just grateful I don't have to deal with those kinds of issues right now. That being said, to have policies in place and to encourage things like this and to make it like seem like sunshine and rainbows, and people, well, we just want to take the stigma out of it. Well, maybe there should be a stigma to it. Maybe it should be something that people should really have to carefully consider, and not make a decision like flipping on a light switch or flipping off a light switch in this case. I think it's being dealt with all too casually. Anyway, I don't know.
I think so.
That's my freaking soapbox on it. So I hope that answers your question, and it pisses me off, and I wanted to really give that email the time it needed. But Chuck and I were talking about being raised as a cop's kid. And I mean, let's face it, a lot of people that go into law enforcement are the children of people that go into law enforcement, just like a lot of people that go into the military are children of people that have served in the military. It seems to be kind of a honor and distinction where you look at what your parent or grandparent did and you decide you want to make that sacrifice or commit yourself to that kind of service. And I get it, but it does affect you growing up.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think that, full disclaimer, both of our dads were cops during the 70s. So this might be a little skewed for like, oh, well, my dad didn't act like that. Okay, well, it was different time period. My dad is old as shit. He's in the 70s now.
So is
yeah, so a little bit different. I think this might be a little bit more harsh than maybe some people, because I have talked to some people and they're like, "Oh no, my dad was great. He always said I loved you and everything."
Well, yeah, that could be just your dad's dysfunction, but we can talk about some of the commonalities between our two dads and being like, I'll give you a perfect example. My dad, like, I was always terrified of getting caught because I knew just how fucking bad it would be if I got caught by my dad's department and he found out, and like it was not going to be like, ooh.
Oh, yeah. I always told people like, no, I can't. I'm not going to drive. And the one time I did end up driving fucking little tank, I was like, hey, dude, you got to follow me, because if cops get behind us, you need to start swerving and get pulled over, because you're fine. I'm not. And you live right down the street, like literally
designated decoy.
My truck from here to here, and we're good. It was like 0.2 miles. I was like, I just need to park it, but I cannot get stopped. Like if I get stopped, my life is over. And I don't want to get my ass kicked by those guys because they know who I am. And two, I don't want to get my ass kicked by my dad because he scares the shit out of me. My dad is a dick.
My dad wasn't a dick, but my dad had a temper. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like my dad, it was one of those things where like he was super chill. Like, he was he tried his best to be like a sitcom dad, kind of a just aw shucks, gee whiz, nice guy. But when he was mad, he was freaking mad. And
my dad. Whew.
I could remember being a kid and seeing like, his police gear, and he would talk about like hitting people with his baton, and he'd tell me like, and I was like, holy shit, my dad's actually like beat people with a club. Like he doesn't even have to threaten you with it, just the knowledge that he's done it. Like you're oh shit, like I don't want to, like, what's the level at which if I piss him off, he's going to hit me with that thing? And my dad never threatened me. I don't want to give that impression. But as a kid,
my dad did.
You have these thoughts, right? And you're not going to control them.
Right. Yeah, no. And my fuck, dude. My dad scared the shit out of me. And he was a cantankerous old man. And still kind of is. I mean, he still really doesn't say I love you. The first time I heard I love you was when I graduated Marine Corps boot camp, and I was like, well, that's fucking weird, and that was the first 18 years of my life. I never heard it. I never heard really much. Only he barely even said good job because he didn't want to give me a ego. So like I didn't get any praise. Like the dude was tough. Like he was hard. And and still to this day he's still kind of that way, and when he's mad, he's fucking mad and won't talk to you and stuff. And I see a lot of myself in him, like now. But like I look at my kids, and my dad never gave me like an explanation of like, hey, this is the reason why I'm upset. This is the reason why I snapped, and I'm sorry. It was my fault. And I've never heard that from him. So I try to make sure with my kids, because I don't want my kids to grow up the same way I grew up. I want them to be a little bit better. Yes, I'm strict. Yes, I'm tough. I'm stern. I'm also a cop. And I think that being a cop has a lot to do with it. But I always try to make sure, like, I tell them I love you. I tell them if I fucked up, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I yelled at you. It wasn't your fault. It was 100% my fault. I was upset. It doesn't excuse it, but I was mad. My bad. Hopefully you can forgive me. And I don't really say it that way, but I say, I fucked up. I'm mad. Like, it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Just so that they know, like, oh man, he's always just getting on me. It was never my fault. And like, yeah, I fucked up. It was my fault. But I think a lot of this toughness and sternness, and I think this is where a commonality of everybody, no matter who you are, what generation you grew up in, the gap or whatever, I think being in law enforcement, dealing with everybody, you get kind of jaded with certain people or whatever, because you see the worst of that group of people or the area of people or whatever. So you kind of get jaded in that sense, and where you're constantly dealing with everyone's bullshit and everyone, you're dealing with them on their worst day. Like there was a scene in what was that, Southland, where the training officer is talking to the boot, and he's like, you see people on their worst day.
Yeah.
And he was giving this long thing, this explanation. I'm like, that's 100% exactly it. You see people on their worst day. So if you're constantly being immersed in everyone else's garbage, it's going to kind of stick on you a little bit. No matter how much you try to delouse and get it off, it's still going to kind of stick with you. And I think that that's where being tough and stern as a law enforcement father or a kid of law enforcement, you're like, what the fuck? Like, why are you this way? Well, this is the reason that they're this way, because one, they don't want you to grow up that way, I guess. Because I kind of see it now. Like, I don't want my kids to grow up that way. I want to show them, like, these people are not the ones you want to end up like. And I'm going to, by my own default, be kind of tough and strict, because I kind of want that I don't want them to go that way. But I want to have this balance. And I think that's where I'm always like, hey, I'm sorry. Hey, I fucked up. Hey, it was a little tough, but I'm still stern, and what I say fucking matters, like that's how I raise my kids. And that's kind of how I think we were raised a little bit, except a little bit tougher.
Oh, a lot
point
tougher.
Where, I never got those explanations. I never got a good job.
My dad said I love you.
That's good.
But he never apologized, and he did not apologize. I did not get a legit apology. And there was some other, like, we could have a whole other podcast on Locker Room about growing up with divorced parents versus growing up with married parents, because that's a huge, I don't subscribe to many theories of privilege, right? I don't like white privilege and all that. Like, no, I mean, we're all pieces of shit, and we all should get treated like that until we earn some respect in life. That's kind of my theory on it. But I will say that I have noticed that there is, I think, my parents stayed married, or even if they divorced, they were amicable and friendly and did what was best for us and as kids, parents, versus parents who got divorced and the kids got caught in a fucking war, and had inconsistent parenting, and like life just completely turned upside down. That is something I do subscribe to, because I think that fucks kids up more than anything else, beyond even having a cop for dad. But my dad didn't apologize for any of his mistakes until our relationship was kind of non-existent. We didn't see each other very often, partly because of distance and partly because of, just where I was at in life and where he was at in life. And, just didn't have that closeness. And then at 19 years old, I was almost 20 years old. My dad took me out to lunch and sat me down and explained some things, and kind of mea culpa'd years worth of mistakes, and just said, look, I was just trying to do the best I could. I'm sorry. Right. I know I messed up. And
that must have been nice.
Well, you know what it made me realize is, like, I instantly forgave him, right? Because he said that. But then I was like, dude, I'm going to make mistakes with my kids. So I better make sure
Own
that
that shit.
I'm better about it, right? Like
Right.
that felt good to have my dad own his mistakes and apologize. And I know I'm going to make my own mistakes, and I know I'm going to want my kids to forgive me for those mistakes. And so I'm going to try and be better about owning them in the moment, like instantly, like as I go. So we don't have to have this big, like, knock it down and drag out thing.
Right.
And to your point, the job, like, how many people I've talked to where the kid's like kind of a piece of shit and it's a cop's kid, right? I have, like, cops kids get fucking arrested a lot. And hell, I think one of the most famous chiefs at LAPD notoriously had a son who was a drug addict, and that was one of the reasons why he wanted to start the DARE program. You know, there is an element of cops discipline people all fucking day at work. They don't want to do it when they get home, right? They don't, like, when their kids are acting up or whatever. They're like, fuck it, I don't even want to hear it. Like, they kind of ignore their kids when it comes to discipline because they're so sick of doing it at work. It's kind of like when you have a guy I worked for, he was in construction. He said that his dad was a locksmith, and every door handle and lock and key they had in their house was fucked up and, you know, not fixed. It was because when he went to work, he didn't want to come home and do the same thing. You know, I mean, it's like having a plumber's who's like, my toilets are always backed up because I don't want to fix it when I come home. It's work. You know, I want to just relax. But I had a friend of mine. She told me her husband's one of my closest friends. He's also a deputy sheriff. And she tells her kids, and her husband knows this, but she has told her kids, you won't know the man your father truly is until 2 or 3 years after he retires. Because I can see the things and the decisions that he makes because of his job. And I know that some of those decisions will change and some of the things he does will change once he's out from under that cloud.
Well, to that note, my dad's an asshole then because he's been retired for fucking 2005, so almost 20 years.
Well, that brings up the issue of some people are just assholes like that.
My dad's out in California right now.
Yeah.
Do you know how many, when he told me he was going to be here and when he arrived, he didn't. You know, he asked to come and see the kids. He didn't. This dude, like, and we got into a kind of an argument because we're all going to a wedding today. And I had to ask, because I had been asking my dad to come out for my back surgery. It's like, hey, we really need help. He's like, he would give me excuses. I'm like, just let me know if you can make it or not, but just at least let me know. And I was like, I'm going to pay for everything. Don't worry. You don't, no money. Like, I'll even buy you clothes if you need clothes. I don't give a fuck. I need you. And he's like, well, I don't know. Well, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'll fucking run around. Long story short, never even gave me an excuse on why he wasn't going to come. Like, he didn't tell me he wasn't going to come or wasn't going to come. And then, so 2 months later, my cousin's getting married and I'm invited. And so I asked my aunt, I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from my dad at all. Are they coming? Like, are they invited? I would assume so, right? And she's like, oh, yeah. Oh, your sister's in the wedding. And I was like, what? And so I call my other sister, who's my stepsister, who's more of my sister than my half sister, because that bitch is an asshole. And I fucking start unloading on her. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is going on? No one told me. I was like, they didn't tell me they're going to be out here. They didn't tell me they were going. She's like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. She's like, look, I don't know. She's like, I'm not going to make excuses for him, but like, that's fucked up. I get it. You're upset. And I was like, dude, this is bullshit. So I text him. I'm like, hey, man, what the fuck? Call him out. Nothing but excuses. And he accused me of only calling him when I want something. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I only called because I needed help with my back. And this is the one time I've asked you to come out and help. But every other time I've asked you to come out to see the kids, I'm sorry, I want a relationship. And all my kids know their grandparents.
Right. See, and this is like, where like there's a line between being just a garden variety asshole father and being a cop, right? And some of those issues are guaranteed just because from the way he's a garden variety asshole and the way he was raised. Right. And
it's because he didn't have a good relationship with my grandpa.
Right.
And
then some of those issues, like he sees it as you only call me when you want something. But I can tell you right now from experience, without that apology and that sit down lunch with my dad where he owned up to his mistakes, I would not have the relationship with him that I do now. And if he thinks that you only call him when you want something, maybe that's because he's developed a relationship with you over the years of him being a cop and treating you like dog shit,
Right.
where you don't have a close enough relationship where you want to call and share things with each other on a regular basis.
And we don't, because he never
right,
even calls me. Right.
right. That's
so it's
the
got to
thing.
be two-way street.
He didn't cultivate that relationship with you as a kid.
Exactly.
He cultivated I'm a cop, you're a kid, be seen and not heard, don't fuck up and don't embarrass me on the department. And then
it's kind of 50-50 like that with my kids right now.
Yeah.
I hope I don't fuck them up. My daughter's already 13. And I think I'm kind of fucking her up already.
Well, I mean, unfortunately you share that kid with another parent who,
and she's an asshole. And let's face it. Oh, hold on. If there are any probation officers out there, are you guys all pussies? Okay. Because this dude seems to think he's a fucking cop, and I'm not trying to shit on you, but you're not a first responder. You may be in some type of law enforcement, but if you're only dealing with people on probation and mainly it's fucking juveniles,
that's like a third responder.
You are a kitty cop. Like it is not this. We are not the same. I am sorry if that offends someone, but this dude is a fucking pussy, and he is out here. And I hope you listen to this because you, sir,
you jumped the shark on me. I have no idea who you're talking about.
Cock, my ex-wife's boyfriend.
Oh Jesus.
He is a fucking cock. And
ladies and gentlemen,
will not look me in the
Chuck
face.
Clearly has to air some issues out.
He will not look me in the face. He seems to think that dude, I don't know, he's got some fucking chip on his shoulder, but like if you spend time with my kids, you might want to stare me in the eyes or at least make some eye contact with me so I can introduce myself, because you have yet to do so. And I'm about to make your life fucking embarrassing for a lot of people, because I'm about to do it really loudly in front of a lot of people, because I've seen you like 5 times. You've had every option to come and introduce yourself. So like, look, my question is, if I'm not saying all of them are pussies, I'm just saying, do you have a lot of people who work with you who have chips on their shoulders who are pussies? If you do, please comment, let us know. I'm not saying that you yourself are. I'm just saying that like there are some security guards out there that think that they're more than what they are.
Right. So it's
I'm not calling you pussy.
I will speak like to that. This for sure, because I have dealt with this at my current job. The self-awareness it takes, right? Whether you're a probation officer or police officer, like a firefighter, a volunteer, like we talk to volunteer firefighters, we talk to full-time firefighters, we talk to veterans who served full-time, we talk to veterans who served in the National Guard, we've talked to veterans who served reserve, we've talked to veterans who have been deployed, we talked to veterans who've not been deployed. Every single person has a level of self-awareness that they know their role, they know what they do, they know what they're involved in, they know, the guys who didn't deploy, we have to talk to them. We've talked about this many, many times about not feeling like a second-class veteran, and yet understanding that they still don't have the combat experience. So they feel like there's this missing piece in being able to kind of share experiences with combat veterans about combat. And that's understandable. You were missing the prerequisite experience, right?
I didn't deploy, but I don't feel that way.
No, but some people do. Right.
Right. But I've also been involved in shootings.
Right. But that's also self-awareness, right? There is self-awareness. Yeah. But I have worked with people who are, I guess, law enforcement adjacent, right? Security. I've worked with somebody even recently who I've had to look at and go, dude, that's not your job. Like, I know you want it to be your job, but it just isn't. Probation officers, yes, you put on a vest, a badge, and a gun, and you go involve yourself in the legal process, and you do take your probationers to jail when they violate probation, and you go out looking for them when they're doing stupid shit and all that kind of stuff. And you do risk, the ones that are out in the field are risking, at least the probation officers I worked with some great ones that were out there. They'd come out on patrol with you and be like, hey, let me go help you jack up some of my probationers so we can, clean up your town a little bit. And they would just ride with me for a couple of hours and we'd go literally searching out all of their probationers that are causing problems.
Right. I've worked with some that are,
and they're
good
Johnny on the spot. But then there are some
right.
that will look you in the face and act like they do the exact same job as you. And it's not that a probation officer's job is any less or more. It's just different. And you have to be self-aware. Security guard, you work at one facility. You know, the guy we talked to who works at the nuclear power plant in security. That is a very, very heavy weighted responsibility of a job.
Yeah, that's a no shit job.
That's a no shit job. He's still a security guard. He's not going to be responding to a domestic violence incident. Right. First responders by definition are the first ones to respond. The first. And that's why we joke with firefighters about second responders.
And this is not a dig on my ex. This is a dig 100% on your man. He's vagina. End of story. That's it. And this is not a dig on probation.
Right.
This is a dig on him. I don't like him. He hasn't introduced himself. He can use.
That's a big thing, dude. Introduce your fucking self. Like
exactly. Like you're just hanging out with my kids. You might want to say something because I'm about to. And I'm gonna giving you the benefit of the fucking doubt because I've been dealing with my ex-wife and a lot of issues. And I'm like, ooh, dude, like I'm biting my fucking tongue. But
and especially if he's a probation officer and he knows you're a cop, like that should be like, hey, professional courtesy. I am going to introduce him.
Dude, he ran away the other day at my daughter's volleyball game. The volleyball game was over, and I was going to say something to him because he wouldn't look at me in the eyes when I came in because I stared at him, and so did my wife. And we both like mad dog the fuck at him. I didn't know she was mad dogging him, but she was staring at him. She's like, the guy's a pussy. He doesn't say anything. And then he got up and ran away. And my wife looked at me and goes, hey, he's a bitch. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, he ran away. As soon as the game got over, he got off the bleachers and went outside, like ran away. And I was like, yeah, he is kind of a bitch. And I'm like, if a woman is saying that about you, you might be a bitch. I'm just saying. Anyway,
you know, we should talk about this. Is a good locker when we finish our addictions, but we got to remember to talk about like how to handle like exes and new, you know, like if you have children that you're co-parenting after a divorce, we need to talk about that on Locker Room. I think
I would like to have some people who've like come on who have been through this, you know, and how they handled it, because I'm still trying to figure this out.
Send us an email.
Yeah. But like, so I think that being a cop's kid is difficult. It's tough. I think we're all kind of really similar. Some may be less assholey than others, but know that if you have kids of yourself, you are going to be tougher and stricter than most parents because you see the worst in people. Know that it is okay, but try to give your kids explanations. I think that will help in the long run. I don't know for sure, but I'm trying to figure it out. And I think that Tom has kind of already gone through that. So I think that probably a safe bet is if you are stricter on your kids because you've seen the worst in people, but you give an explanation, they will end up okay and they won't feel like a second-rate citizen. Or like I said last night to my wife, I feel like a fucking orphan that has a family that the family doesn't want to see them. So if you don't want your kids to grow up feeling like that, try to be a little bit more present. We have a tough job. Don't get all bogged down with depression. Remember that you have a kid. If you are feeling like that, please go talk to someone. And if you don't have a spouse to bounce it off of, go talk to a fucking therapist. Because
and if you're in Canada, don't call the VAC.
No, they'll want to kill you.
Right.
Oh my God, that's horrible. But yeah.
So I think being a cop's kid is I wouldn't have traded it. Hell, I got out of plenty of trouble because they knew my I told you that. Okay, this is a Matt story. You ready for this? So Matt and I were driving over to Matt's house because his parents were going to be gone. We were going to have a party. And I had the car. So I was driving from my house to his house, and it was literally a straight shot down this long 4-lane street in LA from my house to his house. Is about like 10 miles, one down, just no turns, just straight down the street. And somehow I had I didn't drink beer, but I had come upon a case of beer from a friend who was like, "Yeah, if I got a case of beer you can have for your party." And we were driving. We were about a mile from my house. Got pulled over by LAPD with a case of beer in the back seat. I was 17. Matt was 18, or 16 and 17. And I was like, I'm fucking dead. Like, I'm screwed. This is it. This is my dad's going to kill me. And I pulled out my license, and my dad's business card was behind my license. And you want to talk about cop privilege? This is cops kid privilege right here. LAPD cop pulls me over, sees my license, sees the business card, and then looks in the back seat of the car. If he didn't know it was a case of beer, then he was the world's worst cop I've ever met in my life.
He knew, and he was about to ruin your life because he was about to call your dad and be like, "Hey, dude."
And he sees the business. He sees the business card, and he goes, "Who's the cop?" And I go, "It's my father, sir." And he goes, "Really?" And he looks at me, looks at Matt, looks in the back seat, and goes, "Have a good night, boys." And he hands me my driver's license back and dips out and leaves us with the case of beer.
That's some OG cop shit right now, because like that would not happen today. You would have that action on camera. Beep, beep.
Yep.
Beep, beep. Sorry, boys. Or, hey, how's it going? You know, like, try not to, because where you look is not always where the camera goes.
Right,
but,
exactly.
You might still be able to get away with some of that stuff and some discretion, you know.
Yeah,
that's funny though. That's cool.
It was cool, and I mean, I've got other stories about that getting out of shit, but yeah, that was like Matt. He looks at me and he goes, "Did that just fucking happen?"
Real quick before we get into dedication and closing speech. Funny thing is about getting pulled over. Real quick, because I used to drive my dad's truck a lot because my truck was a piece of shit and it always broke down.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad wouldn't pay to get it fixed. Great dude. Anyways. I was driving his truck and I was obeying the speed limits, and I was like, I can't really fuck off of my dad's truck, is a lot, even though I did it all the time. But I was driving the speed limit, and at least I thought I was, and I got pulled over and fucking whoop whoop, and I was like, oh fuck, CHP. Oh, what was I doing? I'm like trying to develop an excuse, like I'm trying to think of something to tell my dad. I'm like losing my mind. He comes up to the car. I roll the windows down, my little crank, because my dad's cheap ass. So I'm like cranking that bitch down. Yeah. And he comes up and he's like, he's like, "Oh, you're not Bob. Charlie, what are you doing?" And I was like, oh fuck. Did you not you pulled me over just to see if it was my dad? Like, yeah. And I was like, what's wrong with you, man? And I tell him, I was like, my dad said he would kill me if I ever got pulled over. And he's like, you might want them to take you to jail because you're not going to like what happens when you get home. I'm like, oh, thank God. I thought I was losing. He's like, oh no. He's like, we should fuck with him though. And I was like, I really don't want to.
That's okay. I'm good.
And I'm like, this dude was trying to pull some super trooper shit. And I'm like, I'm 100%. He's not the person to fuck with. Like, I love to, like, when I got old, like a lot older, I'd fuck with him a little bit, but he really didn't take practical jokes well at all.
No, he doesn't sound like he's got much of a sense of humor.
No, he doesn't. He really doesn't. I mean, I used to fuck with him a little bit, and he would get really angry, and I would laugh, and then I would just have to leave it at that because he took it. Yeah. Well, funny story, we got into a few fights, and the moment I think he realized he couldn't fight me anymore is when he threw a punch, and I caught it, and he threw another punch, and I caught it, and I said, "Dad, stop! Like, you're weak. I don't want to hurt you.
Your powers are weak, old man."
and he looked at me and he kind of had that aha moment where like, fuck, my son's actually stronger than I am now. And I'm like, that's just because you're old. Like, it had nothing to do with man strength, because you still had man strength. Like,
but what's amazing though is like, if you had, like, I have respect for my dad now. I mean, I always had respect for him in some way or another, but we didn't have a great relationship for a while in my teenage years. And now we have a good relationship where, like, if my dad wanted to beat my ass for something, I would just take the beating, even though my dad's much older, and
it's not like it would hurt.
Well, I would hurt, but it wouldn't fucking kill me like it used to,
Yeah.
And I just, like, I read a piece of advice that says your father should be the one man who, even in an adult diaper and a wheelchair, can still kick your ass. And I was thinking about that, and it's because the respect you have for your father should always be there to the point where you would never raise a hand against him. But that implies that you have a father worthy of that respect, because there are plenty.
It's got to be mutual.
Yeah, there are plenty of fathers. Like, there's a difference between being a father and being a dad. You know, you knock up some willing hellhound, and you're a father, but that does not make you a dad.
Right. I'm not going to lie. I've always respected my dad until as of late, because just nothing but excuses. And I've offered nothing but help. I even offered to give him a $40,000 trailer that I own.
Yeah.
I'll just give it to you, bro.
Yeah.
Because he was some stuff that he was thinking about splitting from his, I don't know. I'm not going to really get into that because I could get in a lot of trouble. But
well, I could say this, that if you have kids, if you're a cop and you have kids, whether you're a mother or father, just be aware that your career affects them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think it doesn't, you're fooling yourself. My daughter's 21 years old. She has admitted to me things now that she would not tell me when I was working, that scared her and that weighed heavily on her. And, that the idea that I would go to work, like, she was proud of me, but she was like, she always had subconscious issues with what I did for a living. And she told me to this day that if she watches a movie or a TV show where the dad dies, it fucks her up, because all her life she was worried that dad was going to go to work and never come home. And I can tell you that Amazing Grace on the bagpipes or military funerals fuck me up, because I was always worried like I was going to have to go attend my dad's draped flag LAPD funeral if he got shot and killed in the line of duty. It just So I guess all of that about parents and being a law enforcement parent or being a child of someone in law enforcement, it does affect you. And just be open and honest and discuss your job, discuss your pressures, discuss the things you go through with your kids as they get older in a safe, responsible way. Don't fucking come home and tell your 6-year-old stories about the fucking arm that got severed in the freaking.
Dude, my 6-year-old knows I got into a shooting.
Well, I mean, sometimes that's unavoidable. It's just how you talk to them about it. Yeah, it's how you talk to them about it after the fact that really is going to make the difference. I'll tell you this. Growing up, my dad, he was telling his buddy, I was probably 5. My friend Jenny was 4, and he was telling his buddy, he's like, yeah, this is just a little funny anecdote to explain how kids are listening and how your job affects them. Is he was telling his buddy, yeah, I'm working graveyard shift. And my friend Jenny overheard it, and she comes into the room like kind of scared and wide-eyed, and she looks my dad in the face and she goes, you work in a graveyard?
No, it's overnight.
Right. But if she had not asked him that question, if she had not been precocious enough to just walk up to him and be like, oh my God, you work in a graveyard, she would have just internalized it as he works in a graveyard. Kids do that kind of shit. If you make an offhanded comment about, I want to shoot this jackwagon or da-da-da, and your kids hear it, all they hear is you talking about how you want to beat people and shoot people, and they don't take it as hyperbole. They don't take it as a joke. They're like, right, my fucking dad's a homicidal maniac.
my kid was like, hey, Dad, are you going to arrest him? Can't you just shoot and kill him? And I was like, no, you can't just shoot and kill anybody you come in contact with. He's like, but you're a cop. And I was like, that doesn't give me a right to kill people.
Right.
It gives me
they have these little kid minds.
Yeah, and I have to explain shit to him, and I'm like, look, dude, like, no, because I don't want him to grow up thinking that cops can do whatever they want and they're above the law, because that's not the case. And so I think it's like about how you explain things to them. And face it, when they're young like that, you're going to explain the same shit over and over like a fucking broken record.
I mean, do you want proof the cops can't do whatever they want? How about the cops that, recorded themselves on their body cam burglarizing a house?
You're a bunch of idiots, dude.
No, dude. I'll send you the video.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Where was this?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the name of the town, but they literally activated their body cams by mistake and recorded themselves burglarizing a house.
Awesome.
I'll send
What
you
a
the
bunch
video
of
and then we'll have to talk
fucking
about
morons, dude.
it. Yeah. So anyway, okay, go ahead, Chuck. I know we have our dedication this week.
Yeah. So this goes out to police officer Lauren Michael Courts. Police officer Lauren Courts was shot and killed while responding to a shooting call near the intersection of Joy Road and Marlowe Street at about 7:30 p.m. When Officer Courts and his partner arrived on the scene, the subject immediately began shooting at them, striking Officer Courts while he was still in his patrol car. Fuck. After being shot, Officer Courts put the car in reverse, and he and his partner jumped out of the car to take cover. His partner tried to save him by applying pressure to his wound. With her back toward the approaching gunman, the subject had come downstairs from the building, pointing the gun at the two officers. Other officers who had arrived on the scene shot and killed the suspect. Officer Courts was transported to Sinai Grace Hospital, where he succumbed to his wounds a short time later. The man who sold the gun to the suspect had been charged with illegally purchasing a firearm. The shooter had a criminal record and could not buy a weapon legally. Officer Courts had served with the Detroit Police Department for 5 years, and he was assigned to the 2nd Precinct. He is survived by his wife, son, daughter, and parents. His father had recently retired from the Detroit Police Department. His age was 40 years old, 5-year tour, badge number 611.
Well, rest easy, brother. We got it from here, and good for those responding officers to take out the threat and put him down. Unfortunately, it was not in time for Officer Courts, but it's fucking terrible.
True warrior mindset, though.
Yep.
After being shot, was able to place his vehicle in reverse, get him the fuck out of there to try to give a little bit more distance and time, because
probably saved his partner
time from the suspect. Oh yeah, because his partner was applying pressure and like, fuck, dude, like I.
Oh, and gee,
situation.
Did you say that suspect had bought that gun legally and gone through background checks and all those things that are supposed to stop bad guys from doing bad shit with guns?
Yeah,
Oh wait, I think he said he bought it illegally
from a fucking gun dealer,
because fucking bad guys don't care about gun laws.
I like how they put that in there.
Yeah, just saying that. Just there's that for you. Anyway, all right. Well, go ahead, Chuck. Take us on out.
Well, thank you all today for listening. If you like today's podcast, please go and follow us on our Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you already follow us and share our posts and our info, you can also go to the link in our bio on Instagram and Facebook to reach all of our socials, our media, and our website. Our podcast is on all major podcast streaming platforms as well as on our YouTube. If you want to support us, please go to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com. Grab some gear. We have Wobby hoodies, shirts, patches, stickers. We also have shirts that will be arriving soon, not tank tops, shirts, and a couple free goodies that will come along with those shirts once they are purchased. So hopefully you guys like it. And then we're going to be doing the spring gear and the summer gear. We already have the tank tops good to go for that. So if you guys like the logo that's on the shirts, we'll make them into a tank top. Or if you guys don't, you want something new, we'll just create a whole new logo.
Yep.
And then we should have hats here shortly. If you want to be featured on a show, please go to booking.warstories@gmail.com and send me your story. I get you booked. If you've already been on the show, you want to come back on the show, please just email me. You can use the same thread we talked to before. If you have a friend who you think would be a great fit for us, please give them our booking information. Send us their booking information, and we can get in contact with them. And just let them know about us prior so that it's not like, who are you guys? Because that kind of comes off weird sometimes. We are looking for law enforcement, corrections officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, and veterans. So yeah, thank you all for the support and stay safe.
Yep. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.